Hey guys, with another One Take review, and today I am sitting at an angle to hopefully hide the fact that I am having a very bad hair day today, but don't have any pre-recorded videos to send out, so I have to record today to keep up with my daily schedule. But also more importantly, I'm here to do the sixth entry in my Rock Hall nominee review series where I talk about one album by each of the current year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. And today I'm going to be talking about none other than Duran with their album Rio. Now, Rio is probably the defining Duran Duran album. I mean, besides the fact that this has easily the band's biggest hits, it's also the fact that you could really argue that Rio's sound overall kind of sort of represents Duran Duran's entire sound and style, at least throughout the 80s, and what the band accomplished during that time. But besides those particular aspects of the record, it just really contains some of the band's best songs overall, which is sort of impressive considering, for the most part, they've had a pretty solid discography outside of a couple of missteps here or there. I also feel like this is an opportune time to remind anyone who isn't aware or maybe forgot about it, but Duran Duran did a cover of 911 as a joke by Public Enemy, and if that sounds bad to you, it's because it is, and please listen to it. It's absolutely horrendous. It's wonderful. Anyways, just felt like I should add that on the topic of their discography. With that being said, allow me to move on into the actual review, Duran Duran's Rio. Now, before I do get into the fairly predictable, expected discussion of vocal work, instrumentation, and whatnot, I do kind of want to talk about Rio's lyrics. First of all, I could find very little concrete evidence on who wrote the majority of the lyrics for Rio. I'm assuming it's the band's lead vocalist, Simon Le Bon, but I could be completely wrong. It could be a third party, it could be a different member of the band, it could be a split among the band and third party members. I don't really know. I couldn't find that much for sure evidence, but I'm just going with my gut instinct here and assuming it's the band's vocalist. And Rio has some very strange lyrics because, for as upbeat of an album it does have some very cryptic, albeit occasionally corny lyrics that really walk the line between mysterious and goofy new romanticism of the 80s. I mean, you've got songs like Save a Prayer, and even the absolute radio staple that is now Hungry Like the Wolf kind of walk the line between that romanticism, but sort of verge onto surrealism as well. I should say, walk the line between romanticism and surrealism. It's sort of hard to describe, and it's very easy to miss as well, especially with the album's instrumentation. It's very not representative of what you might find in the lyrical department, and there are a lot of times here where it's just straight up what you would expect, completely 100% singing about love or this girl that broke his heart or something like that. But generally speaking, it's done in such a strange and kind of non-traditional way that I do think it makes it a slightly more interesting listen, at least in terms of songwriting, compared to other bands and albums from this time period and from this very, very niche genre. Speaking of Simon Le Bon, like I said, he's also the band's vocalist. He's a great frontman. I mean, he kind of is sort of the face of that new romantic vocal style, and I think he's earned it. He's just a pretty flawless performer. In a way, there's not too much for me to comment on in the first place, but he's just as smooth as you could possibly ask for from an album like this. You've got songs like Last Chance on the Stairway that see him just really perfect his craft and pretty early into his career, while all the while. It's kind of impressive, actually, all things considered, how much he's achieved as a performer, and this was only a couple albums into Duran Duran's discography. But again, there's not a lot for me to really say about his vocal work. It's a highlight of the album, but it's not really something I can just go on and on and on about. But he leads Duran Duran wonderfully. He's a pretty much perfect performer, and if you like the style of new romanticism and synth pop of the time, you'll love his voice. If you don't, you'll not like his voice. It's really, if you like the style, he's a perfect vocalist for you. If you don't, he is not the perfect vocalist for you by any means. And I think he's a great vocalist overall because I personally love the style. Instrumentals on Rio are solid as well. Of course, this isn't the type of album to have these soaring guitar solos or really epic drum solos, although John Taylor's bass work is pretty great at times, but it's all for the better, in my opinion. It seems to me that the members of Duran Duran, when they were making this album, sort of recognized the boundaries that Rio could go to without actually kind of becoming too drawn out or overly experimental, unnecessarily experimental, which can be a curse for any album of any genre, really, depending on how far you try and go with the sound overall. And I think Duran Duran realized what their boundaries were, what they could do, and they did what they could do, and I think that's great, really. I think that kind of makes for a fun album. I won't say it's like this interesting album that you have to pick apart riff by riff, chord by chord, or anything like that. You don't need to, understand music theory to appreciate this or anything, but I think it's a fun record and it's performed extremely well, so I can't really ask for much more than that, especially not from a band like Duran Duran. The production work on Rio was done by none other than Colin Thurston, and that name probably doesn't sound familiar to you, at least for most people. It won't, not a household name or anything like that, but he did most notably work on David Bowie's Heroes album, the entire record, so if he does sound at least mildly familiar to you, that might be why. He does a slick job here. It's predictable how it sounds, but it's predictably great, so I can't really complain about that aspect of it too much. It's just a very satisfying kind of sound that he produces here from Duran Duran's performance overall. And I think that anything else would have kind of sounded maybe a little off, But I think overall things like the subtlety of the synthesizers at some moments of the different songs here kind of work in its favor, and it just sort of is kind of almost the defining, shining example of what a new romantic synth pop album does. And I mean, Thurston even does contribute to the a couple tracks here, like the album closer, "The Chauffeur," which is probably the best song on the album, at least in my opinion. It's almost unnerving, and it kind of has an atmosphere that's really not like any other song on the album. And I do think that Colin Thurston does have at least a little bit of his hand in that, and why that is such a interesting, unique song on the record and Duran Duran's discography as a whole. So yeah, Colin Thurston is he's a very good producer, very underrated producer. He's not done a huge amount of stuff as far as I'm aware, but what he has done is some pretty great work from what I've heard. So overall, Rio is undeniably a classic album, and it's, I think, rightfully earned the spot as one of, if not the iconic new romantic synth pop album. And I think it's a great record. I think that it takes a niche genre that is already very good for the most part, and kind of elevates it to a new level in terms of songwriting and even arguably production and performance. So yeah, Rio is a great album, and with that being said, I'm gonna have to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. It's a fantastic record, and it realizes what it is, and it does what it does extremely well. It's not like you're going into this expecting Frank Zappa experimentation, and if you are, then you're doing something wrong. But yeah, just go into this listening for a regular album, and you'll find a great, great, great regular album. So yeah, 4.5 stars out of 5 for this album. Now, this is usually the part where I am, done talking about the album. I just gave my score, then I sign off. But since this is my Rock Hall review series, I'm going to talk about Duran Duran's credentials for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Will they get in? Should they get in? Etc., etc. Now, first and arguably most importantly is should they get in? And it's I guess so. Yeah, probably, right? I'm probably. I don't know why I'm asking. Yeah, you. It's not like anyone watching this can respond. But I mean, they kind of feel at least slightly weaker in terms of credentials when compared to other nominees this year of all genres, whether it be the metal of Judas Priest, the hip hop of Eminem and A Tribe Called Quest, the country of Dolly Parton. They do feel like a slightly weaker choice, but not so weak that they don't deserve to be in. They, like I've been saying throughout this review, they're the face of the new romantic movement, at least in my opinion. And you could say they kind of almost defined a genre, even if that genre only really found its success in a small time frame within the 80s, and that's about it. And besides that, they've got some really iconic tracks, like Hungry Like the Wolf especially, but beyond that, they do have some really iconic songs, and they even managed to evolve past the sound. I should have probably specified that earlier in the review, but the Wedding album in the early 90s, I want to say that was 1993, that was kind of them really evolving past their sound. And as much as I may kind of joke around about Duran Duran by talking about their cover of 911 as a joke, or saying that their new music really isn't all that great, which I mean, it really isn't. But overall, they are a really fantastic band, and they probably do deserve induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Would I do it this year? At least with this ballot, no. But they do eventually deserve to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now the question is, will they get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And really, with Duran Duran, it's not a will, it's a when. I can guarantee you Duran Duran will get in within the next 3 years if they don't get in this year. And I think they're going to get in this year, personally. But if they don't get in this year, which I'll be very surprised by, I can guarantee you coming 3 years. Overall, I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I think they deserve to be in. I think they have both enough of a diehard fan base. I think the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame fan poll has them at number one right now, at least as me recording and uploading this. Could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. And if that doesn't say enough for you, then I don't know what does. I mean, they've got a massive fan base. They got that commercial success that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame always, unfortunately, looks at above influence. But no matter which way you look at it, I think Duran Duran not only deserve to be in, but I think that they eventually are kind of almost guaranteed to get in. It was only a matter of time after they inducted, I want to say Roxy Music a few years back. I could be incorrect about that, but I think it was Roxy Music, I'm pretty sure. Again, could be very wrong, but they did induct a band recently, is my point. They inducted an English band recently. And with that, that was kind of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame acknowledging the fact they exist. So, yeah, I think that they will get in eventually, if not this year, but I think they'll probably get in this year. So, anyways, yeah, that's the end of this review. Do I think Duran Duran deserve to get inducted? Yes. Will they get inducted? Absolutely. What do I think of Rio? I give it 4.5 stars out of 5. It's probably their best album, rightfully considered by many to be their best album. Fantastic record. I think you should, anyone watching this should check it out if you have even the slightest interest in any music from the 80s. This album came out in 1982. And with that being said, yeah, they deserve to get in. Will get in. Great record, 4.5 stars out of 5. And that's the end of this review and this entry in the Rock Hall nominee series. Join me next time where I talk about the arguably first generally mainstream respected white rapper, and also one of my least favorite rappers of all time. So, until then, see you guys in the next one.